Hello, welcome. SmartHelping.com here. I'm Jay, and we're going to keep working on the construction biz model. It's a little earlier today, 9 a.m. I got some stuff going on. Uh, so let's get started. Remember to check out more models at SmartHelping.com. You can buy everything I've ever built, lifetime access for $9.99. I've put in tons of work to all these templates to make them usable, useful, dynamic logic for all kinds of different industries, sectors. A lot of tools, cash flow waterfalls, accounting tools. So tons of value here. The model we're doing today, the construction business, will be included in the industry specific bundle when it's done. And remember, any bundle you do purchase, you gain lifetime access to all the templates that ever get added to that bundle. Let's send our link out to Twitter. Check the sound. Link out to Twitter. Looks good. Okay, looking good. Um, Here we are. So let's go over where we've been. We did a lot last week. We went Monday and Friday. We'll probably continue this week. It'll take a couple days. Might go into next week, this model, but we got a lot done on Friday for all the structure. So first we have, you're going to manually enter the expected number of jobs started in each month, and we're going to have 3 job types. Right now there's only one. So there's that. You put the percentage that the job is completed per month. And so this lines up with the first month of any given, like if you started 3 jobs in month 5, then this would be month 1 of month 5 for that one, etc. So there's matrix logic to handle all of that dynamically. So on an average job, this is the amount of months it takes to complete and how much is completed in each month, and that will drive some other costs as well as earned revenue. You've got the total average value for a given construction job for this job type. When cash is collected for the job, which could vary from when it's completed. Like this will be when it's earned, but you might collect it all up front or some at the end or whatever. So you can define this over a monthly schedule, and this works the same way. Like if you started 5 jobs in month 7, on average you're collecting 10% of all that revenue in month 1 of that job life cycle, which starts in 7. So this is the monthly life cycle. It only applies to this row in the actual model periods. All these are based on the life cycle, but you can still run it on the same monthly, like the designation of months going up. And this goes out for 120 months, 10 years. You've got material costs and when those are paid for over the life of the job. Um, and this average is actually going to come from, on average per job, you can list out what you usually typically have for material costs as well as equipment rental. Now, if you're buying the equipment and not renting it, there'll be a CapEx schedule that we build at later on. But material costs, the rental cost, and when that could be the same as when your job is completed on average, or it could be just depends on when you expect these costs to be paid for equipment rental based on what your average job type is here. Now, obviously, every job's going to be different, but you're trying to do a forecast. You're trying to get unit economics down. You're trying to create some general idea of what it looks like when you scale up to a certain amount of jobs over time. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff here as well with the amount of crews working, the man hours, a lot of capacity logic. So it's going to be pretty awesome when we get through here. Um, Equipment rental costs, hourly. So this is the worker schedule. So there's up to 10 worker types, and that could be subcontractors as well. You can put on average the amount of each headcount type you're going to need on average per job, what their average rate is, and this is a weighted average rate which includes overtime, and you can actually define on a given average year how many overtime hours you think a person's going to have versus regular hours, what's their regular rate, what's the overtime rate, and this will give you the weighted average of those two. For example, this is $24. That's like working 300 hours at $32, which is overtime, and then 1,600 hours at $22.50. So you've got this person on average in a given year making $45,000 over 1,900 hours. That is on average $24 an hour, which is this number. Now, if we were to change this, let's say 500, 2476, you can see, so that's the math that's going on there. Then we also have the average hours worked per job. So this is like saying that you do a job in 12 months, so you're working all 1,900 hours on one job for a given crew member. So these two worker types, they'll work 1,900 hours, and when they're getting paid, let's see, and this is kind of where we left off, I believe. So we calculated what the total on a given per job basis. We're looking at total wages of 686,000, taxes, payroll, benefits, 96, total 783,000 over 1,900 hours worked, and these numbers are what we flow through to the rest of the model, but we can configure these on a per job basis right here. And this is pretty flexible because you could put like 100, you might have 100 head count of this worker, 200 of this worker, or whatever the case is. Um, so even though there's only 10 worker type slots, the count can be very high if you have a really big operation. And it's not too hard to add these. If you wanted to add more, you could just drag all this stuff down, all the logic down, and move this down, because all the numbers that are really going to pull are these totals here. I might do some capacity stuff with the hours worked and how many people there are, but we'll see. Also, I think we have extra row here. Yeah, we don't need this extra row. So I think that's where I left off. So the question is, where do we define, let's look at the matrix here. Where do we get down to? So we've got age of the jobs, the revenue earned. So this is like revenue earned per job, and that's based on when the job started and then the percentage completed. So that's nice. This is when you're actually collecting the cash from the different jobs. Material payments, equipment rental. Okay, so that's where we left off. So we had to do wages here. Now, the question, so we're trying to figure out, so all this stuff's modeled. We need to know when we're applying this cost exactly, and I'm trying to think. I mean, I guess it would be if you have, like, I want to say this cost of labor should be spread out based on the percentage of the job that's completed per month. And the reason why we have to kind of do it like this is because it needs to be dynamic. So you can scale any job count and these numbers could go up or down. You can't just define a worker type slot and what you expect the count to be over time. That's got to be dynamic, because this could be one job, it could be 10, it could be 20 if it's a huge construction company worldwide. You know, there's all kinds of scaling stuff there. So we have to break it down on a per job basis. So here's the total cost per job. We'll probably split these two into wages and payroll taxes as two separate rows. Um, the question is, do we tie that to the percent when the job is completed over time? So let's think through this scenario. We have one job, it takes a full 12 months. So you would assume the percentage of that job that's completed in each month multiplied by the total hours you expect each worker to work during a given job. And I think that logic is sound. Um, Now, obviously, you could just say, well, what's the average length of a job, and just divide this total by that amount, and just make it That's essentially probably what's going to happen with the months completed anyway. It'll probably be just uh, well, it might not be. I mean, if you do, if the first couple of months are doing things that aren't that intensive, and then maybe you get more intensive here, you have more labor hours, and we're going to be able to map the total hours worked. Let's total this up too, because we want to know based on the head count, and that we want to know how many hours are worked for a given job. So here, 28,000 hours worked across 15 people over, what is this, 12 months. Okay, so to scale this, we've got to do two other matrix sections. So we'll copy this down. So this is going to be wages. And all we are doing is we're taking, let's think about this. And we ought to scale it by job count. So if there's multiple going on at the same time, that has to be counted. So we need to say, give me the percentage completed at a given month, row 8, against each job's life cycle, which is tracked here. So that's our telling us what month percentage we're in. And then we reference our months here. So now at least I have percentages. Oh, we got to lock revenue row. Okay, so that's good. And then we can just simply say if error. So this is the percentage completed. Just want to make sure it's working. If I go perfect. And then we're not done with this. We need to say that percent times wages. So this is going to be a dollar value that we're doing here. Okay. And we're not done yet. So we have, this is for a single job, but there could be possibly more jobs going on at once. So we have to multiply this by the total jobs in each monthly cohort, which would be tracked here. The maximum number in each of these rows. And then the fun part comes in. We got to test it. So we could drag this over. Okay. Now we have wages here, so look, this should add up to that total 686, which it does. If we were to change this to say 10%, 20, 10, let's say 20, 30, 40, and then 60, you would see these costs change. There, it still adds up to 686, but now it's different. So 686. Now, if we had 3 jobs started in month one, that should triple because now there's 3 jobs going on at once. So it's 2,060,000, which should just be this times 3. Okay, that's matches. Um, and then the amount of hours and on a per job basis, the amount of people working. I think we'll do something with that on the monthly detail, and we'll probably do some kind of KPIs that show on average what's going on with your worker counts, your job counts, um, and all of that stuff. Okay, so this is good. Let's do payroll tax and benefits. Same logic, but we're just target a different the payroll tax total per job on average. Now remember, this is all dynamic based on the total wages against this percentage put in for each worker type. And then that's all based on these hours here. Okay, what am I doing? F45. All we're doing is changing F45. Everything else should be the same. So all I'll do is copy this. I don't want to copy the cell, I just want the formula because I don't want anything to actually move. I just want to change the reference from E45 to F, hold all else equal. So there's 288, which is just this times 3, 582, perfect. Okay, so we got wages here. So this is great. I mean, we have the basic structure for forecasting the expected revenues, when cash is collected, when revenue is earned, and when material costs are paid for, when rental costs are paid for. I believe we've hit every dynamic piece that's like super relevant to the construction business in this configuration. It's bottom up. Um, Arbitrarily change the jobs completed per month. Configure your job um, worker types, wages, configure material cost per job on average, equipment rental if relevant, and the total value under contract of each job. All this stuff is really good. This is very, very good. Um, do we want to lock this? I believe so. So when I scroll down, I can still use the same monthly timeline for this. Oh, wait a second. We have to account for wage increase. Shoot. Or do we want to eliminate that? Because I mean, it's a 10-year model. And do we want to model? I mean, if you don't include inflation, essentially you're just saying these are the unit economics. Your amount you charge on average for this job type is going to be the same over 10 years. And same with your material costs, rental costs, and wages. So it gives you like the unit economics. If you had to add inflation, in theory, everything should balance out with no effect if everything's proportional to, because you don't know what inflation is going to be. Uh, let's think about this. If we were to increase the wage over every 12 months, how difficult is that going to be? And then if we're going to do that, we'd probably want to increase this and this. I think honestly, it might make sense not to include this, you know? as far as the unit economics are concerned, the main thing is you just need to like if inflation was 2%, okay, you raise your prices 2%, these costs go up 2%, these costs go up 2%, your wages go up 2%. Everything's proportionally the exact same. Um, and again, in 10 years, you have no idea what's going to happen. You're trying to build some feasibility study here to try to figure out what is feasible. It'd probably be used more for a 3 to 5 year. 10 years is kind of overkill anyway. So I think for the purpose of this, we take out that. Do I have any comments on this? No, I do not. So, I mean, because if we have to add that, then every single matrix here is going to have to have a dynamic layer, a growth factor applied on top of it within each cohort, and that's going to get pretty tricky. And I don't know how relevant, like having that is, it might take away rather than add to the benefit of this model. Because if you're forecasting, you kind of want to be able to check the numbers, and when you have a growth factor in there, nothing's going to be tied directly back into your starting numbers, so it's going to be even harder to check. So I think we'll just leave it. And again, you could always, if you really wanted to, because I'm going to have 3 job types here, you could zero out new job for job type 1 at a certain month and start job type 2s instead, and have those numbers be a little bit different if you want, and that kind of, if you really want to show a change of pricing and costs. Now we're going to have fixed costs, a fixed cost schedule that you can adjust every year, like for administration, uh, legal fees, all the just operating costs that aren't included here. Okay, so the good thing is we have these totals all ready to go for job type 1. We got some time here. Let's making good progress. Let's go to job type 2. So we'll just call this matrix 2. And we go revenue assumptions, all the exact same logic. We copy and paste. And then we call this job type 2. Yeah, and the sheet's already getting heavy enough as it is with all these, we've got how many rows here? About 1,000 rows of logic. I don't want to increase the complexity that the sheet's got to do, so we'll just ignore inflation on this for now. All right, job type 1. Do we want to keep this up here? Because I really don't want it to stick as we scroll down. Let's also make the font a little bit bigger. And we can put let's see, monthly job schedule. We don't really need this. Let's just insert this one down and put this down here. So job type 1 section, job type 2 section. I wish I had a clear, what does this look like with the thick bottom border? Can we make it really thick? I don't know if that even changed. So there's like one section. Section 2, make sure it messes any formulas up. We'll have to adjust these for job type 2. Can I get a thicker bottom border is what I'm trying to figure out here. There we go. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit better. Yeah, so really separate these sections, just so it's easy for the user to navigate. All right, job type 1. And let's merge this and put some, let's adjust the text. If I remember how to do this. Job type 1. There we go. Make this a little bit bigger. And this actually can equal whatever you put in here. And we'll do the same thing here. Okay, I like that. It's really, I want it to be basically in clear sections. Now, as far as the formulas go, let's look at, so we want row 50 instead of 7 for our top one. So we put 50 here. Let's also change the numbers around. Let's say you start a job every month on this one. There we go. Age is just relevant to the above. We don't got to do anything with that. Now revenue, definitely different. So we're doing index 9 here, and let's say these jobs are quicker jobs. You do 50% in 1 month, 50% the second month. And let's say cash is also collected, let's say all up front. And materials are paid up front and equipment rental costs are paid up front. All right. Oh, and then materials costs. So on the construction detail, this is all job type 1. So let's reference that. And we simply go 1. This will be job type 2. Logic is fine here. Same with me. These are a little bit less. Just so I know I'm pulling the right numbers, I like to change the assumptions. Okay. And so this is simply going to reference material costs and equipment rental. Looking good, looking good. Okay, and so here, revenue earned, we want to index row 52 and then pull C54. C52. And then I said, I think C54. Now this is going to be a lot more because we're doing these jobs every month. They're shorter jobs though. 25, 25. Okay, that looks right. Let me double check. C54, 52. Perfect. Okay, drag this down and over. Now, if we were to say increase this to 2 and 3 jobs a month, you can see how this scales. Now you get to 3 jobs a month, you're doing a little bit more. Now, if the jobs took longer, those would just spread out. Like we could say maybe 20%, so 5 months, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now you can see now the revenue split over 5 months as it's earned. And then more jobs, the amount goes up proportionally, and you're aggregating all this. So that's revenue earned. We need cash collected. So cash collected, we had 12 before, which is this. Now we want 55. In C11, we want, I think, what was it, C54? Yep. So this is when the actual cash is collected. We're saying all up front. So 150, 100 million, 2 jobs is 100. Okay, good. That's all checks out. The key when you're checking assumptions is you want to know what the number should be and then go look at your formula and see if that's what you're seeing. That's a quick sanity check. Now these are going down to 85 as because you have these jobs. Now, hold on a second. Now what is going on here? Why do we have 85? So cohort 103. We're doing so this is not relevant if we're doing 100% here. The check total. Let's do a check total. So your total should always be 100% for when cash is paid because you can't collect more than what you're collecting. So a good sanity check on that is just to do that. For this one too, same deal. And same with this. All these should be 100%. Now see, I have 160 here, so that's not right. So we got to zero out these. 170 on this one, so zero that out. So that's a good check. As you're filling these out, you can see if it makes sense. Where were we? Okay, yeah, now, yeah, that 85 million didn't make sense showing up here. It didn't make sense. There was like an amount being collected later. Should be all up front. All right. Next one, materials. So materials is going to switch from 15 to 58. And then revenue C14 is going to be, so C14 is C57. Okay, looking good. And again, if you have terms on your materials and equipment rental or whatever, it could be that you're collecting a percentage of those costs, or you're paying those costs uh, after the job is actually completed. So this percentage style inputs gives you that flexibility. All right, equipment rental is going to switch from 18 to 61 and then 60. So 61, 61, 60. And again, 205, 410 should be the amounts we see because we're doing 100% upfront, and those are what those costs are. All right. Now for labor wages, and then we're done with 2. Probably won't get to type 3 today, but tomorrow we'll get to type 3, and then we'll start putting things on the monthly detail and getting more of the formatting and all of that done for the model as a whole. All right, wages 9 is going to be changed to 52. And then E46 is simply going to be E89. So this is a nice way to see a bunch of jobs happening all at once. You can drive down and see like each monthly cohort of jobs completed, what their economics look like over time, and you can also see the aggregate of all those things happening at the same time. This with this style of logic structure. Now remember this, we just have to copy the formula and then change the E here to an F, because F89 is the taxes and benefits. F89. Everything else is the same for this calculation. $52. Yep. Okay, let's drag this over. And then that's job type 2. One second. That. Um, just checking something. And then we'll go ahead and do job type 3 and we'll finish that out for the day. Really, I mean, this model is super useful. It hasn't been too difficult. It makes sense. So I'm pretty happy with how it's going. And a construction business, you know, they're going to be doing construction for till the end of time. So this is super relevant forever. So I think we did a good job with all the structure of the logic assumptions. All right, so job type 3, just that. We have, this goes to 3. We'll adjust these assumptions so we know we're getting the right numbers. See materials. Job type 3, material total and equipment total. Okay, great. That's good. All this stuff is dynamic. Let's say the average job type here is, or cost per contract is 25 million. These are all looking good. Okay, and you can see the weighted average rate of everybody. You could divide this total by these hours. It's 2410. Okay. Now, matrix 3. Let's copy matrix 2 over and get this all figured out. So right now we're just trying to get all of our main line item subtotals for all the different variable costs and all the revenues and everything else. All right, so here we had 50. Now we need 93, I believe. Yeah, 50 is now 93. And then we can aggregate all this together into a full financial forecast as we get all these things finished. We'll also have a fixed cost schedule. We'll have a CapEx schedule if you're buying equipment instead of renting. Um, there'll be all kinds of stuff. We'll change this to 1 job a month. Okay, looking good. Revenue earned, so 52 is going to 95. And then C54 is going to be 97. I think having 3 job types is probably, I mean, you don't want much more than that, and you probably only use, you may use 1, maybe 2. But it's good to show if you know you're going to have different lines of business, and you could just configure how each average job for each line of business, how the unit economics work over time and how that scales over time. And you could scale arbitrarily with this too. Again, you could have 100 jobs a month and it would just use all this stuff. It would just multiply it out. All right. Where was I? Here is this. 95, 97. Cash collected is going to be 55 goes to 98. And then revenue C54 goes to 97. All right, so we have when the cash is collected on the jobs. I want to check also, let me double check this. So for the materials paid, okay, yes, I am multiplying by the job count, good. Because that needs to go up if there's more jobs being done. All right, so 58 goes to 101 against, and then 57 would be 100. So 164,000 is this number. The next should be 102 for equipment rental costs. So 61 is going to 104 and 103. This is where everyone makes the errors too. This is where if you're doing financial modeling for somebody as a customer, this is where the errors happen. When you're doing these references and you have like all the calculations built, but you have to change a reference or you're referencing a new section. And if you don't change it, then like you could easily forget and you'll have job type 2 stuff driving some of job type 3 stuff if you don't adjust the formulas correctly. So that's why I'm really taking my time here and going slow. All right, next up, wages. So wages, we go from 52 to 95, and then we pull 132. So this goes 95, and then I said 132, I believe. 132, 132. Yep. Okay. Drag this over. Now this 686, we want to change this a little bit. Maybe the average job takes 1500. And again, the job length here is probably going to have to be somewhat relevant or compared to the time it takes to complete a job. So if a job's completed on average in a month, it's probably not likely that your worker types are going to be doing 1500 hours of work in 1 month. But if it takes a year, then yes, maybe 1500 or 1900, something like that. But that's one part of the model that you'll want to make sure makes sense, which if you're filling this out with actual forecasted stuff, then it will. Like, because you'll be looking at this, you'll be seeing, okay, what makes sense for the average hours worked on a given job. So that's not something we really have to sanity check because it's just it's gonna have to be relevant based on um, you actually filling this out with coherently. I will put some metrics so that say how many hours are your workers working per month based on all this stuff happening. So we will have that to help you kind of see. All right. So 542, good. And then we want 81. And again, remember this last part, we can copy this formula because we know it's the exact same and we just change the reference of E to F. We're just going one over to get the wages or payroll tax and benefits. All right, and just like that, we've got 3 fully functioning forecasts. Now we're gonna have to bring all these subtotals into a P&L detail and all that stuff. We'll have to add fixed costs, potentially debt, financing, or investors bringing in some money. But the model will solve for the minimum equity needed based on all the startup costs and any burn until you kind of get your scale going. And that will be the minimum equity required. All right, these can go together closer. All right, all right. Looking good. Yep. So tomorrow we'll get into the monthly detail. We're going to start extrapolating or referencing all the calculations we just did. So it's a really nice dashboard. The user can go in here and adjust up to 3 job types, configure them, create a sound forecast. And the main thing we're trying to forecast here is cash flow. Cash required, cash flow, and all these percentages are going to be the drivers of that. All right. Well, this went great. I did start earlier today because I have some stuff going on. I'll be tomorrow. Probably be back to 10 o'clock to go. Yeah, we'll get into more of the P&L side of things and structure. We've done all the hardest stuff. Don't forget, if you want to support, check out smarthelping.com. You can buy all the templates you see here on the site for $9.99, and that's lifetime access. If you want to refresh on the models, just ping me over an email, and I'll send you the latest zip that has everything. Alrighty.